Or city signage. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. City signage on the next.
Right, right.
I didn't get that other one measured, whatever.
Yeah, 1 minute.
I did get the garden planted.
Did you? Good.
Two of the neighbors came over, so what do we plan where? Can we some stakes in it so we can plant state of California. Anyhow.
All right, 6 o'clock. Let's get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you everybody for joining us for the June 6th City Council meeting. Let's start by approving or amending the agenda. Is there any additions, subtractions, or changes to the agenda tonight?
We add a number
text from
4 road report.
Okay,
Drainage, I guess. Drainage.
all right. Number 4 under general business, we'll add that. Anything else, anybody? If not, I would take a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make the motion, Chris.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Andrew. I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda with the note of changes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Deputy Strack, good evening. There you go.
I don't have anything. It's been quiet.
It has not been quiet.
No, you did it.
We had a good crash on, I shouldn't say good one. We had a good, a
big
bad crash
Could have been
right in
bad.
front of
Could have
Action.
been really bad.
Yeah, it could have been really bad. Walked
Yeah.
away with very minor injuries. Getting a lot of requests through 21, 27 traffic, and then the residential areas, the new residential areas. So
Yeah.
other than that, if you have anything, just shoot me an email. I'll try to get out there. I'm at training all week this week for crime scene, so
Okay,
we will have our own crime scene person here in Credit River.
nice. I like it.
So, other than that, nothing new.
That'll be great, and Chris and I won't have to track them anymore.
I didn't sign up for that, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're not supposed to tell
I've been recently just trying to get out more and more with the young kids being out.
them. Yeah.
So if parents are emailing you and saying, well, why is this deputy stopping when my kids are out? So handing out stickers, just trying to make the face of the community. So
Cool.
other than that, it's
great.
great. No.
Awesome.
Okay, good.
Sounds
Good.
good. Anybody have any
Good.
questions for Deputy Strack? No? No? You good?
Perfect.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On the new stoplight on Natchez.
Yep.
That has cameras. Right? At that intersection.
They're not
Sensing
I don't-
that
cameras,
type of
just-
cameras.
They're
Oh, they're
the,
not visual.
Yeah.
they're Opticon cameras for the emergency lights.
And they also do vehicle recognition to change the light.
Just to
Yeah.
change the light. It
Yeah.
doesn't record anything where someone will drive through the intersection.
No,
No.
that's state has those cameras. And the problem with those cameras is we can use them. But we can't use them for a crime. The state of Minnesota put them up in Minneapolis years ago. And then now go fast if you're violating people's rights by camera. So.
There's Minnesota case law.
Yep,
Yeah.
we don't, Minnesota right now, we will never, as use on a crash or something like that, we can use, but we can't use it for safety.
But, I'm sorry, do they view them once in a while though? I mean, to see the amount of people fly through the red lights, and the news for that?
No, the cameras that are up on stoplights and highways, they get used for, like, if we get a call or there's bad backup, our dispatch can view it and say, okay, this is where the crash is at, this is how far back. Or if they're chasing a felony suspect that's a violent offender, they can track that car through the cameras, but other than that, they don't.
Okay, I guess my question is, though, can they ever be viewed to see what's going on?
Yes, they can be viewed.
So those cameras, I don't believe you can. Those ones on that particular stoplight that you're talking about are only to recognize if a vehicle's there for changing the stoplight.
As I've noticed a couple
Mhm.
of them in the last couple of months, and Scott has seen the same thing. If one's too fast to stop, these big trucks and they just flash right through.
At Natchez 185
Yeah,
Mhm.
during the day hours.
yes.
I'll try to sit there and see if I can.
Yeah,
Make a presence, see if we can get a couple stops and then they'll get out the truckers and stuff. We'll know. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Perfect.
awesome.
Thanks, Jeff. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Stay safe out there. Consent agenda, those items on the council agenda which are considered routine, non-controversial, included as part of the consent agenda. Unless a council member specifically requested an item on the consent agenda be removed and considered separately, items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion, a second, and a vote. Any item removed from the consent agenda shall be placed at the end of general business. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have Resolution 2022-22 authorizing the establishment of an absentee ballot board. Resolution 2022-24 Hunt Edition preliminary plat and final plat. Accept a quote from Aztec for microservicing project. Approve revised construction plans and development activity for, or development agreement for Robin View. Accept a quote from Access for a one-time and quarterly shredding. And resolution 2022-23 investment policy. Is there anything on the consent agenda that anybody'd like to pull and consider separately? If not, I would take a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Leroy.
Second.
Thank you, Brent. Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Open forum. The public forum is intended to afford the public an opportunity to address concerns to the city council. The public forum will be no longer than 30 minutes in length, and each presenter will have no more than 5 minutes to speak. Topics of discussion are restricted to local governmental topics rather than private or political agendas. The council may discuss but will not take formal action on public forum presentations. Is there anybody here tonight that would like to speak for public forum? Okay, yes, the answer is no.
Would that be, subjects such as the overlay?
So
The overlay on not just.
the overlay projects that we're gonna have a public hearing for that next.
Okay.
So, yeah, that would be the appropriate time to talk about that. With that, we'll close open forum and we will step into the overlay assessment hearing. And we'll start with a presentation from the engineer on that one. Shane, if you want to.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take the stand here, so.
Bob, would you turn that microphone on just so that. Thank you.
Can you go ahead and advance the slide, please? So this year we're doing an overlay or proposing an overlay, two separate project areas. The first project area is Broadview Drive and Bernard Avenue, which is in the Gray Box development. If we advance the slide, the other project area is Natchez, Princeton, Jesse Lane, Marine Circle. And kind of in a different location of the city. So there are kind of two groups of people here tonight. Just a little bit of background, we want to maintain 64 miles of road. Basically, we have a lot of roads that want to maintain. So the city simply doesn't budget enough to pay for these type of improvements 100%. So they adopted a scenario in which for this type of project, 50% is paid by the city and 50% is typically paid by the residents through assessments. Right now, the roads are in the condition that we expect for their age. There's some of the pavement looks fairly decent. There are other areas where there's some alligator cracking, some block cracking, but just in general, we know that pavement deteriorates over time, and we can kind of see that just by looking at the pavement. So these are a couple of existing pictures, and these normal. Well, this normal, what we call a transverse crack, when these occur, we don't worry about those. That's normal. We have temperatures of 100, 105 degrees in the summertime. In the wintertime, we go to -20. So we have a huge temperature differential. And when we have that big of a temperature swing, what happens with the pavement, it contracts and it has to crack to reduce the stress. So certain things like concrete, we kind of tell where to crack. We will cut joints in it. With pavement, we don't tell where to crack generally. We just let it crack where it develops the stress. And it's not a problem as long as we get in there and grout and crack those the cracks out. What we are more concerned about is when we start to see areas like this develop. This is what we call pattern cracking or elevator cracking. And this tells us that it could be two things. If it happens prematurely, if it happens right away, we just don't have enough strength in the subgrade to carry the loads. But if it happens over 20 or 25, 30 years, sometimes this is just expected because of the repetition of applying loads. The pavement will start to crack. So I'll talk a little bit about pavement management next. So when pavement starts out, it looks like this. It's smooth. It's fairly black. You don't see any rocks at the surface. It looks like one really smooth, homogeneous mixture. But after some time, you start to notice the rocks show up. And what happens is just the effects of weathering. Mainly the pavement is made up of three main components, I guess. So rock, they provide the strength. Your sand provides kind of the filler, and then your oil is kind of like the glue. So the surface weathers first, and as that oil oxidizes and kind of loses its adhesion capabilities, you start to first lose that sand and the top layer. Eventually you start to expose these larger aggregate, and after these aggregates start showing close to half, you start losing them also. So you actually will lose thickness over time on your pavement surface if you don't perform any maintenance. And so this is this is what happens to a pavement after it's become brittle. It's experienced a lot of loads, and all this random cracking has experienced that hey, something probably flexing underneath, or the pavement is just at the end of its life. So when a pavement cracks, it kind of lets in it has a direct conduit for water to go into the underlying aggregate base. When any aggregate base or any soil material gets too wet, it loses stability. So if we get too wet and that crack isn't maintained, you apply loads to it, eventually that pavement sags down or it presses into the aggregate base. And in the wintertime, the opposite happens. So you actually, the water gets into the aggregate base. It might be, a warmer day where you're having some melting occurring, and then it freezes again at night. That water increases the volume by 8 or 9%. That pushes an upward force on the pavement. So if you've ever driven down a really rough road in the wintertime, every time you go over a crack, it feels like there's a little speed bump because you have this occur. We don't do our own pavement research in Minnesota. I don't think any local agency does, because the state does so much of it. They spend $2.5 billion per year in our state highway system. And they said, you know what, we're going to be spending all this money. We should at least spend a fraction of that money on research. So they spend 0.5%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it results in $3 to $4 million annually on pavement research. So we don't do our own research. We just take what MnDOT says. Go ahead and advance the slide. Again, this is just kind of the highway distribution facts and how they divide the money, but it's really, again, the point of these slides is just to let everybody know it's not economical or it doesn't make sense for us to do our own research. So what they've generally found is that pavement follows what's called a typical deterioration curve. So when it starts out, it's in really good condition. It actually stays in good condition for quite a long time. So this first 40% drop in quality happens over 75% of the pavement life. So if you have a road that, let's say, has a 20-year design life, that first 40% drop in quality takes 15 years for that to occur. And the next 40% drop in quality occurs over 12% of the pavement length. So once you have some weathering going on, once you have cracks developing, I mean, it happens a lot faster. The other interesting thing that they found is $1 renovation here will cost $8 to $10 here. So basically, if you're able to do some things before the pavement gets too bad, they've done studies and determined how you can get your lowest life cycle cost. So this is what we tried to do in Credit River. Again, this is our typical deterioration curve. And what we try to do is apply maintenance in accordance with the maintenance schedule. And we try to keep the pavement in good or the new conditions, so these top two and the color bands, as long as we can, because we're interested in achieving that lowest life cycle cost. And again, this is just kind of a bar chart of different improvements. So do nothing obviously has a no cost. Routine maintenance, that's like our crack filling, that costs so little per mile, it doesn't even show up on the graph. It is there, but it doesn't show up on the graph. Preventative maintenance will be just like surface treatments, seal coating, microsurfacing, that type of thing. And what we're here at a structural improvement. So we're actually, by constructing this overlay, will add strength to the road. And we would do something here instead of waiting until it becomes twice as expensive in just a short period of time, or doing a total reconstruction, in which would cost even more. So for proposed for this project, we kind of have two separate areas. So in the Gray Fox neighborhood, it would be edge milling of the pavement and constructing an 1.5 inch overlay. On Natchez and 175th, in that project area, there we don't have curb and gutter, so there it's simply just going up. So it would be constructing the bituminous overlay and then matching in the driveways and then also doing some shoulder. So some of the benefits of constructive bituminous overlay, it adds structural strength, which is going to improve the life of our road. It improves the ride, it's going to be smoother once it's completed. And then overall, we achieve that lower life cycle cost. So this is the last time that we had you all in. I think it was in January of this year. It was a public improvement hearing. At that point, we hadn't gone out to bid yet. We were just using project estimates. But now we're at a point where we actually open bids on this project. We opened them on April 12th. We received 6 bids, which is good for this type of project. McNamara Contracting was the low bidder. They're the contractor that has been doing quite a bit of these type of projects within the city, and they've done a really good job for us in the past. And actually, everything this year has been coming in higher than our estimate, so it did come in higher than estimated. The new project estimate is $678,000. So again, the way that Credit River has decided is equitable for kind of divide out the cost is that all projects that have direct access onto the project receive 1 unit. So that's called a direct benefiting property. And then there are some properties on the west end of Broadview Drive, the latest development. And so for indirect but necessary access, they receive 1/4 unit. Natchez Avenue, they're all direct accessing parcels, so there is only 1 rate. The one thing I would mention about Natchez and 175th Street is there is another funding source. So we just recently became a city. We're over 5,000 people in population, which means we're eligible for municipal state aid funding. We recognize that there's more traffic on Natchez and 175th Street than just the local residents, and therefore we are using a significant amount of our 2022 allocation, MSA allocation, to help fund that project. So again, we utilize the per unit assessment method. There's 61 direct benefiting properties, 16 indirect. City has historically paid 100% of the patching costs Those patching costs are estimated at $131,000 roughly. And then again, as I mentioned, we'd be using MSA funds for Natchez and 175th, and then the remaining costs will be assessed to the beneficiary property. So even though the cost came in slightly higher than we estimated, the same amount is being assessed to the residents, the $150,000. So the assessment amounts did not go up. So the assessment amounts for a full unit is $2,800, and for an indirect is $700. Those can be paid kind of upfront. Prior to, it's usually right around September. At that point, the project will be done. We'll have all the costs, and the city will actually send out a letter to all the residents informing them of the final assessment. You know, if we can save money, we try to pass that on. But then we state in that letter when that assessment amount will be paid. We have to let the county know generally by November 15th who paid all their assessments. And anybody that just decides to take no action, if you don't pay your assessment, then it just automatically gets added to your property taxes, or I should say collected with your property taxes, and that will be over a 10-year time period. So
I have a question. On the assessment over the 10-year time period, are you paying interest on it?
you are paying
$2,800. So your best estimate, what would the total cost be after a 10-year period?
historically, the interest rate that's been charged has been between 4% and 6%. With interest rates going up, it's probably going to be a little bit on the higher side. And we won't know that until we actually adopt the system.
Okay, will that be spelled out in the letter that we get?
It will.
Okay.
So a little bit about the schedule. A lot of this stuff has already happened. We opened the bids in April 2022. Here we are tonight at the assessment hearing. The city council is interested in hearing your thoughts tonight. So after I get done, maybe the attorney will give a quick overview from his perspective, and then there'll be an opportunity for all the residents to. So assuming this project moves forward, the construction could start as early as this month. I tried calling the contractor today to find out if they had a better idea of when they would start, and he wasn't sure. So, and then we call for a September 2022 substantial completion. We generally give the contractor the most amount of time during the summer construction season to complete the project, and then they just kind of determine where they can fit it in their schedule. That's how we get the best bid prices, and usually we just want the project done before school starts. So we have another clause in there that once they start the project, it has to be completed within a certain number of days. They can't come in and rip up the neighborhood, disappear for a month, and then come back later. So once they start, the project goes pretty quickly. If anybody here is in the gray box area, they start out by replacing the bad curb. We'll mark that ahead of time and remove the curb. That has like a 7 to 14 day curing time frame. Then after the curb has cured, then they come back at a later date. Mill the edges. So once they start, you know, they're generally done within 3 to 4 weeks. It's not work occurring every day, but they are kind of making progress, and they do a pretty good job of scheduling the work. So with that is the end of my presentation. When we get to the public comment period, I know the mayor's going to ask that you stand up to the podium and say your name and address for the record. With that, I will sit down and turn it back over to the mayor.
Thank you, Shane. Appreciate the presentation. Bob, is there anything you want to kind of follow up on for the 429? Your microphone is off there, though. Hold it down. Let your finger up. There you go. I just replaced the battery. No, I didn't replace that one. There it is. There you go.
Little
Lights on.
Yeah, it looks like it's dying. Okay. Just very quickly before the microphone dies, I'm Bob Ruby, the city attorney. Just to make sure everybody knows that as part of, this is the assessment here, this is the second of the 2 public hearings that we're required to have. You heard Shane's presentation. The only thing I'd like to add is just to make sure everybody is aware that if you want to preserve your right to object that assessment, you have to file a written objection before the close of this public hearing. And so if you don't file that written objection before the gavel comes down to close the public hearing, then you would be precluded by law. It's a part of the statute in that notice that you received. So with that, Shane, myself, and the city council will be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, so at this time, we'll open the public hearing, and if there are any questions, we do ask that you step to the podium and state your name and address, and then your comment.
Nobody?
Just to give them, we'll give them 30 seconds to think about it a little bit.
Did a good
Just to
job,
make sure.
Getting better at it.
Yes, yeah.
I'll second the motion.
All right, with that, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing. Oh, he's just moving seats.
Oh,
I'll make a motion to close.
Thank you, Brent. You still got your second? Thank you, Andrew. All right, a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. The public hearing is closed. Shane, I didn't see any resolutions to authorize the project.
You already did it at your April 18th meeting.
Okay,
That was,
Yep.
remember that we were concerned that the prices, people might withdraw their bids.
yeah,
So we accepted it
Yeah.
to make sure that, even though that's against our normal policy, we were concerned that somebody may withdraw their bid.
price oil,
Yeah.
wouldn't surprise me. Perfect. So,
And Mr. Mayor, if I could just address
Absolutely.
the residents one more time. So
Yes.
before construction starts, we'll send out a notice to everybody. We'll include contact information if you have any concerns, who to get a hold of, and we'll send that out as soon as we receive the contractor schedule. We tentatively set something up for next Tuesday for a pre-construction meeting.
okay,
So we'll firm that up tomorrow, and then as soon as we know the schedule, we'll send
perfect.
and you'll be getting calls on graduation parties, I'm sure. Can you hold off on our street till the party?
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Although this one doesn't affect as many homes, so it might not be too bad.
Gray Fox.
Yeah.
Anyway, cool.
All right. Thank you very much. Dominique, your item is next.
Would you like me to go on that?
Is she? Bob's gonna handle that one?
I can handle
All right.
that.
Okay.
Sounds good. So under general business, League of Minnesota Cities liability coverage waiver form. Bob, if you want to explain that, please.
Yeah, this is going bad. Every year, the League of Minnesota Cities is going to send you this form now that you're a city. And what they're asking, if you're under their policy, you have the right to waive tort limits. And right now, as a town, you are subject to tort limits. As a city, you're subject to those same tort limits. The league wants to know if you want to waive those tort limits. I always recommend to my city clients that you do not waive it. And because this way you have a way to plan and have a way to budget for what, there's a tort limit for that. It's still generous. It's 1.5 million. But my recommendation for you going forward would be, you're going to get this every year. I would ask that the city council consider not waiving the tort limits, and you create this informal policy that when this comes forward next year, that you could just add it to your normal consent agenda with that marked as not waiving. And then if any council member decides they'd like to discuss it and change that in the future, you always have the right to. You just pull it from the consent agenda and have a discussion amongst yourselves.
Perfect.
But that would give staff, Karen and Dominique, notice to add it to the consent agenda in the future.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Anybody have any questions for Bob? Any thoughts on what you want to do? I concur. You concur that you'd like to not waive?
I think we have to go with what our attorney is recommending.
Yeah, so I would take a motion, and the motion to include that in future years to that this shall be not waived, and we just place on a consent agenda.
Mayor, I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Leroy. Thank you, Andrew. Motion is second to not waive the tort limits. All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next up, we've got a primary and general election update. Karen Donovan, our clerk, is on virtually tonight, and Karen, you have a discussion on that.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Okay, in the packet, there was a list of dates that, just wanted you to be aware of, that are coming up. And just to, just kind of keep you informed, this will be for the primary and the general election. The primary will be on, August 8th, and then the general is on November 8th. And this list just basically goes over all of the dates that are coming up for absentee, for judge training, postings, candidate filing for the general election for the council members will be coming up August 2nd through the 16th. I will post and publish the openings that will be on the council to the residents. And any other questions that you have, you can let me know. We will have 2 precincts, however, we'll just have 1 voting location. They'll just have different ballots. We also have a very large pool of election judges this year. So we'll have existing judges and new judges that will be going through training. We have an excellent head judge this year that will also be helping us out, and then a new election administrator. So I think we're in good hands, and I think everything should work out okay.
Cool. Awesome. Appreciate the update, Karen. Does anybody have any questions for Brent?
Yeah. Karen, so our first target will be absentee ballot coming up at the end of June. And so I'm assuming you're going to be, so that would be June 28th would be the first day that we'd have to have someone here during our Tuesday hour. So
Right.
you're
And
gonna,
there will be training for that. And that's not actually using a paper ballot. That's more, they call it in-person absentee.
Yep.
So, okay. So it's not like they actually go to the ballot.
Right.
box.
So you'll be putting together a schedule on that in terms
Yes.
of folks being here, and we talked about that.
Correct.
And
And then there's this requirement by law that says that we need people there on that Saturday before and that Monday before the election to actually be there.
okay. And
And I'll arrange all that.
yep. And Amy is here in the audience tonight if you
Oh,
want to
great.
recognize her.
Yes, I can't see her on the.
Yeah, she's.
Trust me, she's here.
She's here.
Just outside
Yeah,
the
trust
camera.
me, she's here.
She's
Hey,
getting ready to
Amy
run.
Wilson. She will be the election administrator, and she will do a great job. She's very organized, and she's done some of the training already. There'll be a little bit more, but I think she will do a great job for the city.
Yeah, thank you, Amy, for stepping up and taking on that role. We really appreciate that. So for those who don't know, Amy Olson is also on our planning commission, so we really appreciate it. Good job. Yeah. Any other questions for Karen? No?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Karen, you good?
I'm good.
Awesome. Appreciate the update. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no problem.
All right, let's move on. Next item, general business number 3, interim city administrator. So Brent and I, you guys have all met Mark McNeil. Brent and I have met with him a bunch. He has met with our staff and consultants, and was very impressed with what we've had going on so far with what we have and that. So Brent and I were talking, and we believe that he would be a great interim administrator candidate for us, and we'd like to have council authorization to enter an agreement with Mark for a period of approximately about a year, and the end goal would be is to hire a permanent administrator at that time. And so, Brent, I don't know if you had anything else to go along with that comment?
Yeah, I think his thought was, and his suggestion was that he would come in and do some assessing as to what is needed, where we need to be. Goal would be probably right after the first of the year, we would put together the recruitment project to actually find a permanent administrator. And then after that person was identified and hired, there'd be some training or overlapping period with Mark. He wants to do it. He said that there's probably not going to be another opportunity to have to be able to come in and take this municipality from a township to a city, and he's up to it. He really wants to do it.
Yeah.
And so when we have someone with his qualifications, I was mentioning to Chris, and I'm always looking for the headline and the subhead. But if Mark is in that position, we will go from having no city administrator to having the most experienced city administrator in Scott County, and probably one of the most throughout the metro area and the state of Minnesota. And I think that speaks volumes for what we have done here and what he sees as a enjoyable time doing what he knows how to do, and that is being a city administrator. So
Getting it started right.
Right.
I think we are very fortunate, and we're very lucky that we know him and he knows the area. He has really done his research. He has spent hours upon hours talking to people, talking to all of the communities. And of course, he's the real deal. So, yeah.
This would be the third city in Scott County that he'd be the administrator for.
Yes. Yes.
Did Shakopee, Savage?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess what we're looking for tonight is authorization from the council to work with our attorney and Mark to enter into an agreement for the interim administrator.
Yes, talking about that
Yeah.
is what we kind of plan for in our budget planning sessions.
Yeah.
At the mark.
Yep.
Can I make the motion? I think I can,
Absolutely.
right? Well, I'm going to make the motion that we enter into the agreement.
Your motion is to negotiate,
Yes.
to bring back to
And
the
execute.
council. At the next meeting,
Yeah, we can finalize it next meeting in 2 weeks. We'll have it ready in 2 weeks.
can I ask who in the council has the sort of,
Yeah, Brent and I do.
okay, so just
Yeah.
call you guys.
Talk to me. Yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
call
talk
you
to
and
Chris.
then-
Yeah.
I think you've seen the proposed agreement before. You've probably written it.
I've written a number of these.
Well, it's the one that he talked with Frank.
Yeah. 'cause
he has that
Frank
same
took me
one as
by
Frank's.
surprise, 'cause he called me
Yeah.
up, he says, well, congratulations. And I'm like, what? And then he said that said it would be you as a city council at a great hire if you can get Mark.
Mhm.
And he knew him from his time as
Yeah.
mayor. So yes, I will.
That'll be the model for our agreement.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if he's seen that, he's so comfortable
Yes.
with it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I will, I'll give you a call and I'll just modify that,
Yeah.
and get that out for you.
Leroy, do you have something
Well,
else?
I'll second it if anybody.
Andrew already did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to motion in a second to work with Mark McNeil and enter and finalize an agreement for authorization at the next meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Perfect. Interim administrator.
Interim?
Yes. Leroy, road report.
Oh, we had a couple of drainage issues, went out, and looked at them. Mark's Bobcat out to fix it, nothing serious.
Okay.
Little erosion by some culverts. And other than that. That was about it.
Yes. We dust coated, we got that
Yep.
done.
Yeah. Thank you to Andrew for jumping in.
Yeah.
And
good
between
job, you
the
guys.
two of us, we're
Yeah.
all done, and
And,
haven't heard any complaints, but haven't heard any comments at all. So
I think that worked well. It rained a little bit too over the weekend afterwards, so.
Yeah, should be in good shape.
Yep.
Oh, and
the new and improved, the Dura
tester.
blend or Dura coat or whatever, starts at the end of the blacktop in front of Action on Murphy. and it goes all the way up to the curve on Murphy, just kind of down the road from me. So
Yeah.
that curve that goes to the right, the big curve to the right before 165th Street, that's where the tanker ran out. So that's where that is.
We know wherever it is.
Yeah.
so we'll put it down the test
Yeah.
strip.
And it looks a little different too.
So
So,
not as dark.
no, it's not as dark, right? Yeah. But we decided we were gonna do one truckload and see how it works.
Cool.
So there we are.
You had one more thing you said?
Oh, 7855, I fixed the mailbox post that twisted last year.
Okay.
After that rain just went out and twisted it back, so. I don't know, you know,
Well, there we
it wasn't a
go.
whole lot of effort, but it's fixed.
Perfect. All right. Anybody have any council member updates or anything else other than road stuff? No? Okay, next, approve of claim listings. So tonight's claims are $86,424.62. Anybody have any questions on any of those claims tonight?
No questions? Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Brent.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Leroy. Motion is second to approve the claims tonight for $86,424.62. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Thank you, Andrew.
Oh, second, sorry.
Listen, you guys don't want to adjourn, we can sit here all night.
Quick question for Bob.
Hang on, let's adjourn really quick
I
first.
thought we did.
No, we didn't.
Oh,
We took the motion in second, but we didn't vote on it.
okay.
Motion is second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion